In the statute, subsection H provides when and what the Secretary of State must do. When they get the sworn report from the law enforcement officer, the Secretary of State shall confirm that suspension and shall in fact mail a notice of the effective date of the suspension 46 days after either the service of the sworn report, immediately to an individual who refuses or takes a breath of a .08 or greater, or if the officer receives the notice back that in fact there is a blood alcohol level of .08 or greater, or there is some type of drug substance in the program, in their urine or in their blood, they then will send the notice to the Secretary of State. Once the Secretary of State does that, they will then send an individual out indicating to them 46 days from the date of the notice, that being immediately from the police officer to the motorist directly or upon the mailing. I see, and here's where in the Secretary of State and the rules and regulations provides that should the sworn report be defective, by not containing sufficient information or be completed in error, the confirmation of the statutory summary suspension or revocation shall not be mailed to the person or entered into the record. Rather, the Secretary of State shall forward the sworn report to the court of venue with a copy returned to the officer indicating any defect. In the state of Illinois, at the last percentages, about 93% of all statutory summary suspensions issued were sustained. In other words, they were affirmed. The 7% that appears to not be of the 7%, most of it is where it is error, paperwork error, either by the police officer and or the Secretary of State. Very few cases that go to hearing is the suspension rescinded. And I see a lot of issues with police officers in how they handle these sworn reports and things they're going to do. So you're going to have to educate your police officers about how to properly handle these sworn reports. The sworn report is sent back to the police officer. They are required to fill out the notice, complete it, and then, although the statute doesn't provide it, because it's a civil proceeding, they should then give a notice of the amended sworn report to the motorist. And they should indicate, the police officers should indicate in this that either they drove to their home or their work of business and served them immediately on the amended sworn report, or that they mailed it to the motorist. Police officers will have problems in sustaining these, and so will prosecutors, when in fact they don't serve any amended sworn reports that they actually get back from the Secretary of State and have completed to the motorist. Courts are reluctant to, and will grant petitions to rescind. As it is a civil proceeding, an individual under the civil rules is required and can be required to be served with any amended notice from the Secretary of State and the police officer. So the police officer should have a copy of the sworn report, give it to the motorist, and then file it with the Secretary of State and call an amended or a new one. If they file a new one, they should serve a new one and call it a new one. And then again, forward everything to the Secretary of State. In the new provision of the statutory summary suspension, a suspension can be entered and under when in fact and can be revoked. The person's can be revoked if in fact during the course of this arrest there was an A injury. Under subsection I, they now have added this to define what an A injury is. As used in this section, personal injury includes any type A injury, as indicated on the traffic accident report completed by a law enforcement officer that requires immediate professional attention in either a doctor's office or a medical facility. A type A injury includes severely bleeding wounds, distorted extremities, and injuries that require the injured party to be carried from the scene. On the officer's crash report, there are codes: the A code, the B code, the C code, and then 0 for no injuries. If your law enforcement officer indicates it's an A injury, they want to make sure that that A injury conforms with the statute under 11501.1 subsection I, which talks about immediate professional attention or severely bleeding and those things. A scratch, a bruise that people say, I don't want to go to the hospital, is not an A injury. If in fact the officer fills that out and it's not an A injury, the motorist can come in And in fact, we'll file a motion to strike and dismiss that based on the fact this was not an A injury. If it is an A injury and the court sustains the statutory summary suspension, then the individual motorist rights are in fact revoked, not suspended. And the big difference would be then that they would have to go to the Secretary of State, the motorist, to get actual driving relief, as opposed to from the court to have an actual hearing. This is a new provision, and again, it's incumbent upon prosecutors and police officers to know that. And from the defense standpoint, we're always looking at crash reports. We're always looking at the police officers' work to determine if, in fact, this was an A injury.